And Siddhant, let's also apprise our viewers of the rituals that will be conducted tomorrow, the last rites to be held at Delhi Cantonment. General Bipin Rawat will be laid to rest with full military honours. Siddhant, we understand that civilians can also pay tributes to the departed Chief of Defence Staff starting 11 a.m. Till about 12:30. Post which military personnel can pay their respects, following which the mortal remains will then be taken to Delhi Cantonment.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. The mortal remains today will be taken to the army hospital here in Delhi, and from the hospital they will be taken to the residence of CDS Bipin Rawat at Kamraj Road, where of course the civilians and military officials will be coming to pay their last respects to someone who of course had a major role in comes to India's security and defense establishment. Then thereafter there will be a procession from his residence to the crematorium in Delhi Cant. We will see representation not only from the political establishment here in Delhi, but also representation, as we have been talking about, by top army chiefs from Nepal, Bhutan and Sri Lanka. There will be representations by most of the countries, most of the foreign missions located here in Delhi, especially the defense attaches and the envoys who will be present at the crematorium. But essentially the country is yet to come to terms with what has happened. This is a major shocker. It's a major setback. In fact, earlier today WION spoke to the former army chief of India, J.J. Singh, and he talked about the role he played, about his legacy, and about how he had an aim to make sure that there is more reform, something that is required essentially to deal with a lot of crises, including of course the two-front war, which is something that India faces by both Pakistan and China. So whosoever his successor will be, he will have to fill a lot of big shoes, but also take his legacy forward, what was his aim, because his job, what he wanted to do, is still not over yet. Of course, he was very young, and this is something, a tragedy of huge proportion, something that nobody could have imagined ever, that this kind of crisis, this kind of tragedy could have happened. We know that the focus, of course, is also on the succession, who will be the next CDS. There was, in fact, on Wednesday, the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting led by the Indian Prime Minister, where the top ministers, the Foreign Minister, the Finance Minister, the Home Minister and the Defence Minister, including the NSA, were also present. But this could, of course, take some time, including, of course, the inquiry. We know the Indian Defence Minister apprised the Parliament, both the lower house and the upper house, about the incident, and also about the tri-service investigation that is taking place, the inquiry that is taking place. There is, of course, the black box has also been discovered. That will also shed light to exactly what happened that led to this disaster, something that has shook the nation. But tomorrow, of course, all through the day, we can expect homage and prayers being done. And as we have seen in the neighborhood as well, whether it's Bhutan or other places, the region, of course, is also impacted by this major tragedy that, of course, has happened, and the countrymen are yet to come to terms with this development.
Right. Stay with me, Siddhant. For our viewers who might just be tuning in, these are the latest images that we're getting to you from the Indian capital, New Delhi's Palam Airport, where the mortal remains of the departed Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, have now arrived. Remember, General Bipin Rawat, his wife Madhulika Rawat, and 11 others passed away yesterday after the tragic chopper crash in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu. The Chief of Defence Staff, his wife, and 12 others were on board that ill-fated chopper yesterday in the southern state of Tamil Nadu, just about 10 kilometers away from the arrival point. About 30 minutes after taking off from the Sulur base in Tamil Nadu, it was scheduled to land at the Wellington Defence Staff College. but unfortunately, at a very short distance away from its arrival point, it caught fire and crashed. Locals then rushed to the spot and tried to control the blaze. At around 2:30 p.m. IST yesterday, around 90 minutes after the crash, the blaze was doused. And last evening, the Indian Air Force had put out an official confirmation confirming the worst fears. General Bipin Rawat, his wife and 11 others succumbed to their injuries as a result of that tragic chopper crash. Siddhant, let's also apprise our viewers about the condition of the sole survivor of the crash, Group Captain Varun Singh, who is undergoing treatment. At this point, what is the medical update? Any update that we have as far as Group Captain Varun Singh's condition is concerned?
Well, he remains critical, but he is being moved to the hospital in Bangalore, and of course all efforts are there to make sure that he survives. We know that the Indian Defence Minister also has talked about it, and of course the Indian President also tweeted earlier in the day. But efforts from the authorities are to make sure that he survives this tragedy. We know that 14 people were on board that chopper when it crashed, and only one survived, and he of course remains critical, but the entire country tonight is praying for him. We also know that focus was also on the inquiry, the investigation, the tri-service inquiry that has been announced by the Indian Defence Minister speaking in the Parliament earlier today. And the findings will be very important in terms of the lessons learned from this major tragedy that has happened. And of course, as we have been talking about, the country coming to terms with it, but also focus on succession. And of course, tomorrow, of course, we'll see the cremation of CDS Bipin Rawat. And if I talk about a personal experience, he is someone who has been very candid with the media. He has been speaking to media, and he is much respected both in the services and outside the services. There have been so many interactions that I can still hear his voice. That is the feeling I get. The last time I met him was at the Navy Chief's reception, the Navy Day reception over the weekend, where the Indian Defence Minister and the President were also present. And nobody could have imagined that this kind of tragedy is going to happen just few days from that day. A day, of course, which saw a lot of happiness, cheer. And in the past as well, he has been speaking to the media. In fact, I still remember that when the India-Australia 2+2 happened, when it got over, he was one of the first persons to enter the media briefing room, and he was quick to meet with the media, and media was also quick to talk to him, and he talked about what happened. And of course, his basic focus has been about the security challenges India faces, especially when it comes to China and Pakistan. And currently, given the global situation, we have seen how fragile it has been, especially when it comes to dealing with a very aggressive China. China, of course, that has been a cause of concern for the entire globe as well. But talking about General Bipin Rawat, his legacy is something that will be written in golden words. He will be someone whose loss cannot be fulfilled ever, and he in fact leaves a vacuum when it comes to the security and the defense establishment. He was the go-to person essentially when it comes to speaking about these issues, taking advice. And of course, the office of CDS was created for this very purposes, for integration, and of course to make sure that India is ready to deal with future challenges and future wars. But today, of course, as the country still mourns the loss of the good soldier, to use the term as the newspapers have been describing him, the country will also be looking forward as to how his vacuum can be essentially can be taken over, or the new successor can be announced. Because remember, India is a nuclear power, and the role of CDS is very key in the security and the defense establishment.